So we were looking at projectiles from cliffs at angles. Did I say angles? Components. A projectile is launched from a cliff. Okay, that's important. At an angle of 64 degrees with the horizontal and an initial velocity of 36 meters per second. A says, find the range. I like this question. I like this question. I like this question. I'm going to dulp because they didn't give me a picture. So there's the cliff. I guess the height is 45 meters. I'll remember that's going to be a negative 45 if I put it in for my data. Looks like we're being fired at an angle of 64 degrees with the horizontal. And the initial velocity is 36 meters per second. All right. I'm going to find components. Vx, Vy, initial. Although we learned a stupid shortcut yesterday. So let's go to our t-table here. Horizontal, vertical. What two things can I write right away without even thinking about it? Ax equals 0. Ay equals negative 9.8. I also noticed that dy equals negative 45. Gotcha. What was Vy initial? Do you remember? Okay, so Zach, you were away. We noticed that Vy was always sine. You might come up with a dumb way to remember that Vy is always sine. I'll let you figure out your own method of coming up with a dumb way to remember that, Zach. So we noticed that yesterday. And so we can just go 36 sine 64. 32.3566. Which trig function was Vx then? Yeah, of course it was. And I get 15.7814. And I'm carrying the extra sig figs because I know I'm going to use these. What does A want me to find? Yeah, it wants me to find this. The problem is, how many things do I know in my horizontal column? 2. I need 3. Where do I know 3 things, Sarah? Which column? In the vertical. I'm going to find time vertically. How? It's going to be a quadratic equation. It's going to be d equals VIT plus a half AT squared, but I'm going to remind myself vertical, vertical, vertical. The most common sloppy mistake, by the way, for VI, kids use the 36, because isn't that the initial velocity? We're never going to use that slanty one for anything, because it's neither vertical nor horizontal. It's going to be negative 45 equals 32.3566 t minus 4.9 t squared. I did the half of negative 9.8 in my head, because I usually do. You can, got to make it equal to 0. You can plus the 45 over. I usually like the quadratic term to be positive, so I'm going to add that to that side and minus that to that side. It's going to give me positive 4.9 t squared take away 32.3566 t, take away 45 equals 0. If you're lucky and you have a quadratic solver, you're now laughing. Ha ha! The rest of us. T equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Page, I might do something like this. That's A, that's B, that's C. That would allow me to be lazy but organized. What's B, Page? Gotta be fussy. No, it's not. Negative 32. So what's negative B in my next line? Positive 32 point. So in my next line, it's going to be positive 32.3566 plus or minus the square root of negative 32.3566 squared minus 4 times A. Running out of room here, Mr. Dewick. Times C, negative 45, all over 2A. You know, 2 times 4.9 is 9.8, because that's where it came from. I think I mentioned this, but I'll say it again. Inside this squared, what's a negative squared? I'm not going to type the negative on my calculator, because I know it's going to vanish, and it's going to let me use less brackets. So those of you who are typing this, is this a fraction? Yep. I have to open up a bracket unless you have the fancy schmancy fraction button. 32.3566 plus square root, open a bracket. I'm not going to type the negative, 32.3566 squared minus 4 times 4.9 times negative 45, close off the square root, close off the top, divided by 9.8. Those of you with your fancy schmancy solvers, did you get 7.7833? Yeah, woohoo! 7833. And there's also, if I get the second root, this one's probably going to be negative. Yeah, negative 1.18, which I'm going to reject. Mr. Dewick, will you ever get 2 positive answers? You can if you're looking at this specific situation. Don't write this down. If the projectile is like that, and if you're solving for a height, let's say right there, you'll get that time and that time. It would have to be a very bizarre, specific question, and I'm not going to ask you that this year. But for what it's worth, yeah, you can. That would be 2 positive times that it's at that particular height, for what it's worth. Oh, what does the negative time actually mean? Also, again, just nerd trivia. If you went backwards 1.18 seconds, that's how long it would take you to get to the ground if you could somehow go through the ground. So it's not a completely meaningless time value, that 1.18. It's telling me something, but time's not negative. We're just going to ignore it. We haven't even found what they asked. What were they asking us to find, Mud? Okay. So now I'm going to put a little part A. dx equals, well, Vx was 15.714. Ax was 0. Haha! Time is 7.7833. I'm going to use my answer button. How can I find dx? What happened to the plus a half at squared? Can you see if you're in a rush and this is one of the most common mistakes. Kids so want to do this and put the 9.8 there. Because, well, there's no accelerate, it must be accelerate. No, not horizontally. It's nice. No quadratic term. This is great. So it's going to be 15.7814, 7.7833, no squareds or anything. 15.7814 times answer button. Oh, I got the wrong answer. That was dumb. That's because I had the wrong value because I found the negative one. There, I can do that. Or you'll have to use the 7.7833. Let's try that again. 15 point, what was it, Mr. Dewick? 7814 times, answer button. It only works if you have the right answer sitting on your answer button. That's a problem. 123. We'll go to 3 sig figs in our final answer. I would consider this on its own a pretty good written question for 7 marks, because you can see, Sarah, we did a number of steps. If you think about it, we found Vx, we found Vy, that's 2 steps. We realized that Ax and Ay, that's 3 steps. We found time, that's a 4th and 5th step because it's a pretty complicated quadratic. Then we found dx equals vxt and found an answer. There's a lot of oomph there. That's a Physics 12 question. B, at what time does the projectile reach its maximum height? Yeah, I guess we're turning the page. At what time does the projectile reach its maximum height? Darman, the word height, does that suggest horizontal or vertical? So I'm going to do a t-table, but I'm only going to do half of it, so I'm not going to draw the full t. I'm just going to remind myself I'm only using vertical stuff here. Okay, so Vy initial was, I'll scroll back, 32.3566. 32.3566. Darman, what was AY? Negative 9.8. Can I use the time of 7.78 seconds? Is that one? No, we're not at the top then. I need 3 things to find the 4th. What else do I know? What's V? I gotta be fussy. Vy final? Vy final, by the way, V final is not 0 because it's still moving sideways. In fact, V final is Vx because that's all that's left at the top. Vy final is 0. You know what? I can find T. Darman, I'm looking for an equation that's got a V initial, a V final, an A, and a T in it. There is one. I think it's our old friend, isn't it? Get the T by itself, please. Okay. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, Paige. Make sure you're putting only vertical values in here. So some common mistakes I see, kids, they forget that Vy final is 0, and they know they need 2 V's. Oh, they'll let V initial be 36 out of desperation, because that is technically the initial velocity. But are we ever going to use the slanty? Everybody say no, no. And then they'll let that be Vy. I mean, they're kind of grasping at straws, right? So it's going to be 0 minus 32.3566 all over negative 9.8. Zero minus, by the way, instead of typing 32.3566, if you really want it to be accurate, you could just type in 36 sine 64, and that's almost less typing. I flip-flop between typing in the actual complete trig function or just typing in the decimal value, but I'll do the decimal value because that's what most of you probably already typed, 32.3566, close off the top, divided by negative 9.8, and I get a time of 3.30 seconds. I'll call that part A, because there's a second question this asks as well. Part B. How high is the maximum height? Okay. Well, I guess this is asking me to find a vertical displacement. I'm not going to relist everything because I have it all sitting there. I'm looking for an equation. It's got to have a D in it. And I can use a V initial, an A, a V final. You know what? Or I can use a T since I just found time. Which equation? Our good friend? D equals VIT plus a half. Oh! D equals VIT plus a half AT squared as long as everything is vertical. So you're telling me it's going to be 32.3566 times 3.3 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 3.3 squared. I'm going to use my answer button instead of 3.3. 32.3566 times answer button plus a half A. Come on, do it. Don't make any typos here. Negative 9.8 answer button squared. I got 53.4. Why does the answer say 98.4? Why is this wrong? Sorry? We found how high above where we started from. We're 53.4 meters above initial. But we were not on the ground to begin with. So I get 53.4, but the height is going to be 53.4 plus the cliff. How high was the cliff? 40. And I'll call this one positive because now we're measuring from the ground up. So plus 45. And that's where the 98.4 comes from. What else can I ask? I can find the velocity. I can find the velocity, Garrett, anywhere along its path. This says find the velocity at t equals 2.4 seconds. In other words, now this is asking me to find the slanty velocity. I'm going to dulp. Problem. I don't know if I'm on my way up. I don't know if I should draw it like this on the way up, or if I'm on my way down. Or do I? How do you know? Oh, we're less than 3.3 seconds. We're still on our way up. So where it says find the velocity, I'm going to pretend it looks something like that. It might be steeper, Danica. It might be shallower, but it's going to look something like that. It's going to go up at an angle. Did I say angle? Ooh, I know Vx. I got to scroll back because that one never changes. 15.7814. 15.7814. I don't know Vy at that moment. It's not 32 point. That's what it started at. I need to figure that out. So over here in the margin, I'm going to say, okay, wait a minute. I think technically that's going to be a Vy final. That's good at time 2.4. Well, I know A. I know T because they told me. I know VI, 32.3566. I can find V final. VF equals VI plus AT. Wow, I'm actually using the equation as it is, as written, which doesn't happen all that often. It's going to be 32.3566 plus negative 9.8 times 2.4. I get 8.836. You know what? That makes sense because it's almost leveling off. It's going to level off exactly at 3.3. We're a little less than 3.3 seconds, so it's not going up as fast as it was before. I'm okay with that. 8.8366. 8.8366. So this is the velocity that they want me to find right here. How can I find the magnitude of that velocity? I'm looking for a word that starts with the letter P and rhymes with Pythagoras. I can do Pythagoras. So the magnitude is going to be 8.36 squared plus 15.7814 squared. Square root, answer button. And I get a magnitude of 18.1. Now, if they had, instead of saying find the velocity, if they had just said find the speed, I'd be done, because the speed is just the magnitude, the scalar of the slanty. I'd be done. But they said find the velocity, so I need a direction. Where am I going to put theta? Bottom left or top right? Where the vector is coming from. Color, 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 color. That Vx, opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Vy final. OA, which trig function? And I'm finding an angle, so it's going to be second function. Tan theta equals opposite 8.8366 over adjacent 15.7814. I get 29.2 degrees. What of what? If you said north of east, I won't mark it wrong, but I'm going to argue, Nick, up is not north. And we're looking at a side view here where up the page is actually up. So the way we write this is we would say the direction is above the horizontal. If it was on the way down, we would say below the horizontal. That's a pretty advanced question. Example 4. What if the projectile is launched from the cliff horizontally? It's weird because horizontally from a cliff are the easiest questions mathematically, but they're the ones kids struggle with the most. If we launch horizontally from a cliff, what's Vy initial? You need to commit that to your brain. The number of times I'll see kids say that Vy initial is because they need an initial velocity. I want there to be something, so they'll use this. But now they put a horizontal into a vertical, and everything after that is nonsense. Oh, and by the way, the fact that it's 0 means a lot of your equations are prettier, because anytime it's a 0, hey, we'll take that. Example 5. A projectile is launched from a cliff as shown. It lands on the ground 5.2 seconds. They gave me time. This question's going to fall apart. I'll tell you that right now. Because up until now, what have we spent most of our time finding? Time. If they give me the time, now you'll have something that goes in both columns. This question's going to fall apart. Find the height of the cliff Find the range. Okay. Is this a projectile? Yeah. T-table. Horizontal, vertical. What two things can I write without thinking about it? AX equals AY equals negative 9.8. Oh, and as a bonus, T equals 5.2. T equals 5.2. Take that. Hey, Zach, what's VY initial? Which trig function? It's not 0 because, look, we're not launched horizontally. Okay? Which trig function is VY? Yeah. It's going to be 20 sine 30. I think this works out, yeah, to 10 even. That's a bonus. Always nice if I don't have to carry yucky decimals. If Vy is sine, Zach, which trig function is Vx? Can you guess? Of course you can. Yes. $17.3205. Sarah, how many things do I know in my horizontal column? How many things do I know in my vertical column? That's why this question is going to fall apart, because I can find anything now. Sarah, what's A want me to find? Height? That's vertical, isn't it? I'm going to use dy equals question mark. I'm not going to relist everything. I got it sitting in a lovely T-table. Which equation am I going to use to find the height of the cliff? Yeah. D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. Vertical, vertical, vertical. I've been talking for a... Oh, hang on. Let me just pause the video for a second here.
For the interruption. Any grade...
I've been talking for a while. I'm going to go straight to plugging in numbers on my calculator. On a test, I would write out the numbers on my next line just to make sure I don't make a silly mistake. And so Mr. Do It can give me part marks if I make a typo on my calculator. But here, I'm going to go 10 times 5.2 plus 0.5 times negative 9.8 times 5.2 squared. VIT plus a half AT squared. Why did I get a negative answer? This is giving me a displacement. Did I end up below from where I started? Okay, I'm good with that. I'm going to get negative 80.5. Height is technically a scalar, and so if this was a multiple choice question, I would probably have 80.5 to pick from, not negative 80.5, for what it's worth. B says find the range. Okay. I guess, Xavier, the range is going to be dx, yes? How am I going to find dx?
Dx equals dx.
Oh. What?
Ax. Ax.
What is ax?
0.
So how can I find dx? Dx equals vxt plus nothing, right? I'm not even going to write it. I don't even want to tempt myself to put the negative 9.8 in there absent-mindedly. Is that okay? So it's going to be 17.3205 times 5.2. Like I told you, if they give you time, have we had to solve a quadratic at all? Have we done any serious trick? We did the components and that was it. If they give you time, the question falls apart. 90.1. C asks, what's the final velocity of the projectile just before impact? So, let me see. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'll do that one, but I'm going to skip the last example because it's a repeat. What's the final velocity of the projectile just before impact? Mud, is it 0? How do you know? Because if you did a belly flop off of your desk onto the cement, it would, yeah, not 0. Afterwards, it's 0, but not at impact. I'm going to argue it looks like this. I'm going to dull. Braden, again, it might be steeper, might be shallower. It's going to look like that-ish. It's going to hit the ground at an angle. Did I say angle? Always do Vx, the horizontal, first. In fact, I know the horizontal value. It's going to be 17.3205. What's the vertical value? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that out. But I know AY is negative 9.8. I know VY initial is 10. Oh, and I know T is 5.2. Hey! Good gosh. I think it's going to be VF equals VI plus AT again. If I quickly crunch that on my calculator, 10 plus negative 9.8 times 5.2. Ah! I got a negative. Oh, wait a minute. Which way is this projectile traveling vertically? I should have got a negative. That won't scare me. That'll relax me. Mr. Dewick, how come you didn't put the negative on your actual diagram? I did. That's what that downwards arrow indicates. That's the negative. It's in the picture. How can I find the magnitude of the impact velocity? Yeah. I'll call it V imp. I don't want to call it VF because I already got a VF and I don't want to confuse them. So I'll call it V imp for impact. It's going to be 17.3205 squared plus 40.96 squared. Oh, that's fast. Oh, square root, Mr. Dewick, square root. And I get 44.5. At where's theta going to go? Is that right? Yeah. Sorry? Top left, theta right here. Color, 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 color. Opposite, adjacent. Hey, it's going to be tan again. And this is why I said to you at the very beginning of this, it's usually tangent when you're finding theta. But we saw in the river question, not always. There was once or twice where we were going shift sine or shift cos to find theta. So don't assume. Tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. I get 67.1 degrees. Above the horizontal? No, below the horizontal. So I'm going to skip example 6. It's more finding velocities. We've done a bunch of those already. Little physics comic for you. And I think I already gave, let me see here. Gave you that, gave you that, gave you that. I'm going to add one more if you want to try a real nasty. See if you can figure out number 11. I'm not going to give you one that tough on your test. But if you want to see if you can have the aha moment, there is enough there to handle it. However, can you get out the ultimate review, this big thing here, please? we're going to cross out some questions. So this is due Friday. Now, what do I mean by due Friday? You do not need to do every question. You can. Okay. By the way, I also have another one of these with different questions. And usually I also have another one of these with even more questions. If you want more practice, I got way more practice if you feel you need it. Okay? But to study this, Sarah, what I would do is if you read the question and you go, you know what, I know how to do this, try doing it on your calculator without writing anything down whatsoever. Check your answer. If you're right, skip that. Go to the next question. Like, study intelligently. Okay? All right. Questions, though, that I'm not going to ask. These used to be part of the course and on the provincial, but I'm cutting corners because of COVID. 1 is good. 2 is good. 3 is good. 4 is good. You can cross out 5. 6 is good. 7 is good. 8 is good. 9 is good. Oh, you can clearly cross out 10. Maybe I remembered to cross out the questions already. Usually I forget. 11 is good. 12 is good. 13 is good. 14 is good. 15 is good. 16 is good. 17, 18 is good. 19 is good. Oh, okay. Cross out 20. I might have crossed out the questions already. Let's find. So you don't need to do 20. You know what? Let me just scroll really quickly here. That's good. Good, good, good. Okay, cross out 32. I think I remember to cross out the question. Can you look at 33, please? So what you're also going to notice, there used to be a provincial exam. Hang on, let me hit pause again.
At this point,
there used to be not just a provincial exam, there used to be, Paige, a scholarship exam. So what used to happen is all the grade 12s who took physics wrote a 2-hour exam. Then there was a half-hour gap, and all of us that were nerds would come back, and we would write a 1-hour extra exam that was nothing but the nasty questions. And that's how they decided how they gave out scholarships. By the way, when I was in high school back in 1987, the scholarships that you got were $1,500, which was a lot of money. Do you know what the scholarships currently are on the $1,500? They haven't changed it in 40 years, so it's not worth much now. But anyways, scholarship exams, I generally won't be asking you. There's an exception once or twice where I've taken you to a much higher level because I felt I could. So you can try 33, but you can put a star next to it. If you don't do it, I'm not going to freak out. Same with 35. Okay? That's like number 11 that I put a star next to in your homework today. You can try it. I'm not going to give you one this tough. Same with 36. Scholarship question. At 37, though, absolutely going to be one like this on your test. Here's Cliff at an angle. Find the range. Find the impact velocity. 39, find the range. Cliff at an angle. The answers are attached here. However, I have a website. What's my website? If you go to Pitt Math, click on Physics 12, navigate to where you can get the PDF copies of the notes. Zach, you said you were able to print out the notes. You know how to find there. In there, in Unit 1, there is a full showing all my steps answer key that I've handwritten out. It looks an awful lot like this. Come on, computer. You can do it. Thank you all for your patience. So any of the questions, you'll see I tried to like write out, use quadratic form. Need time. I tried to write little hints and things like that. So before you ask me a question from the ultimate review, check out the answer key first. Because Darman, often you'll, oh, I forgot the squared. You'll remember that better than me telling you that you forgot the squared or whatever. Okay?